All right. So before we go anywhere today, let's go ahead and go right into the heart space. The energy is pretty potent, to say the least, right now. And so let's just start by regulating this heart space. So we'll breathe into the heart, right into the center of the heart. Yep. Deep, 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 as deep in as you can go. And then exhale out everything that just doesn't belong, everything that's not for you anymore. And in this climate, what was for you yesterday might not be for you today. Yep. So nice deep inhale into the heart space. And then we'll exhale out 360 degrees. We'll inhale again, seeing something a little unique. So take a nice deep inhale into the center of the heart. Exhale out 360 degrees. So one of the things that I just want us to be aware of, that we are exhaling out. And so this is through my lens. It looks like it looks like these little silver filings is the best way I can describe it. And so when I ask what those silver filings are, just like when we have magnetic strips on a tape, a cassette tape in the old days, right? That kind of energy. This looks like it is information, magnetized information into your field that is being released. So, and it's being released on all of these little silver particles is the best way I can say it. So with that in mind, let's inhale everything that we can now know, everything that we can now have awareness of, and exhale any of just the conditioning, any of the information that may have run our lives up to this point, but may no longer be necessary or may no longer be holding the attention or our focus, right? So we're just exhaling that energy back out. Okay, thank you. When we're ready, we'll come back to. So Sharon and I have been talking about doing a kind of like an emergency and or a special energy session. I know we do the bi-monthly energy sessions, but let me tell you, there's whatever is happening right now, we are dumping tons of old information, tons of old data. This convinced me of it all the more. Sharon and I were just talking about it yesterday. So look for that to be coming. We'll probably do that by donation or something like that, so everybody can participate in it who wants to. But just a really deep clean, let's say, for this transitional month of October. It's a big one. So, okay, so that said, questions?
All right, first question. I am under a lot of stress with personal things going on, and I find that working out is one of the things that brings me release and helps me feel better. However, I have been getting different injuries a lot, which sends me into a mild state of depression. I can also feel myself wanting to use workout as a way to control things, which may be causing my injuries. I am open to any thoughts you may have.
Okay. Well, the thing you're showing me is back to what I was just saying about the transformation that's going on for each and every one of us. We are right down to biological transformation, right? We're right down to shift in cellular information, a shift in DNA information. That includes the bones, the muscles, everything is literally getting recalibrated. So what you're showing me is I completely get that, you know, the exercise and those kinds of things are something that you're gravitating towards. And that looks like it's a really great idea for you and for any of us. I think it's the intensity of the exercise. Things like taking a walk, you know, I know it probably doesn't sound like as much as you'd like to be doing, and maybe it's not working the muscle the way you want it to be working it, but we have to kind of, we're offsetting what's going on in the biology on its own with what we're supplementing that change with, right? And so keep it easy, you know, keep it restorative, keep it gentle. And let's see. Yeah. Because the injuries that you're receiving are not necessarily because you're doing something wrong or bad or any of that. The injuries that you're receiving or that you're experiencing are coming up because those are weak places in the body from before. And when I say from before, it could be earlier issues in this lifetime. It can be other issues from other realities and other lifetimes. So we can't get, if we try to get focused on, you know, I'm doing something wrong, or, you know, it's something bad about me, I wouldn't go there at all. What's flushing out is what's flushing out. I mean, I hurt my shoulder while I was moving, and it's still not quite right. You know, it's still, it can go up and that kind of stuff, but man, it's just so sore. But my arm was also dislocated when I was a little kid, right? So these are the kinds of things I'm talking about. It's like these patterns are coming back for repair. So gentle exercise, not making it about something that you've done wrong or bad, or even that you're trying to control, because you may be trying to regulate yourself. You may be trying to feel more comfortable or healthy or alive in your body, but that's not necessarily control, negative kinds of control. So I wouldn't put it under that category. All right.
Okay, this question. I'm always fragile, irritable, and impatient at this time of year. There, of course, are many factors for this, including some personal history. How can I best support myself?
Yeah, well, number one, let's not make ourselves wrong for the fact that this is the time of the year that happens, because, I mean, we've had close to a good decade now of every year, the last quarter of every year is dump old energy time. You know, October, November, December, that is when we're doing the big push for cleanup of our biology, neurology, psychology, our old imprints, our old patterning. So if this has been going on for, you know, close to a decade, even for you, then number one, let's consider that it's not just about you and your patterns, right? So we can maybe just cut ourselves some slack, you know, give ourselves a little bit of compassion here, because this has been going on. This last quarter has been just that. We're dumping everything we can before the new year comes in, and we start another iteration of this. And when you look at it for this year, it's not just you going through this, it's humanity at large is dumping as much as they possibly can in order to move into a new dimension of themselves, a new reality of themselves. So that's that piece. The other side of it, well, honestly, a lot of personal compassion, a lot of self-compassion goes an awful long way. You know, we really want to catch ourselves when we're beating ourselves up in any way, shape, or form, because it's just when we're beating ourselves up in any way, shape, or form, it's just an indication of something that we have learned. Yep. Think about your God self, your source self, your, you know, the biggest version of you, the love that you actually are. Is that part of you going to beat the shit out of you? It's like, I don't think so. You know, it's like it's going to have a different perspective. And so I think looking for that perspective first is probably a really healthy way to. The other thing that I will say for you in particular is because we have certain things that we cycle through, the way in which, especially our organs of elimination are designed to work with that energy, right? We're designed to help us process that kind of repeated pattern. And so a little bit of support for things like liver, kidneys, you know, whether that be dietary changes or maybe a little bit of a cleanse of some sort that just helps. I mean, a little energy goes a long way. We just want to start getting that energy moving again so that the body, the physical body, is actually helping you move through that anxiety, stress, irritation, frustration. Yeah. So that it's processing it. Yeah.
Okay, this question is, I appreciate the Monday call on the future now moment. As I am preparing to change my world radically, would like further discussion on maintaining my now moment, how not to sweat back into the collective way of having change.
Yeah, well, and I think that's just it. It's like we have this information come to us and we don't want to go backwards, but a lot of times we say, I don't want to go backwards, and we stop right there. You know, instead of really understanding that the moment that we notice anything that we're not, that's not ease and grace, the moment that we notice anything that's not really supportive of our now moment, let's choose again. Yeah, it's really that simple. It's let's just choose again. So for instance, I'll give you an example. So my shoulder, I can get very like irritated, frustrated. You guys are all talking about things that I feel on any given day, right? So it's not necessarily what's arising, but how do we meet what's arising? So my shoulder is off, it's doing what it's doing. My mind says, oh, well, what if that's something serious? What if it's this? What if it's that? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated because I'm not sleeping well, these kinds of things. Okay, that's all the information about what is in that moment. Your future now moment is what you want to do with that energy. So I'd like to have a little bit more compassion for my shoulder. I'd like to have a little bit more understanding of maybe why it's going through what it's going through so that I can have more compassion for it. I'd like to have some insight as to what might support it in its healing process, right? The moment that we go from this is what's wrong and this is what's broken to this is what we would like, we start creating our future now moment. If we just leave it at what's broken, we have a tendency to just go back to what's broken or what feels broken. Right? We have to make that shift to what we're choosing. Yeah. And what if it could be that simple? What if we could just start saying, it's like, well, you know, I'd like this kind of information. And it doesn't mean that you're going to get that kind of information right there, right then. Yeah. So it's not about putting that information out so you can download whatever the next step is. You're putting that information out because you're acknowledging that, one, you're acknowledging that you can create your future now moment. And two, you're letting your source self, your God self, know what would make it easier for you. Yeah, we're so used to it being harder for us that we very rarely just assume that we can just say, hey, this is what would make it easier for me. It would make it easier for me if I understood this, that, or the other thing. Yeah, it would make it easier on me if I wasn't so hard on myself, or I didn't have to be so hard on somebody else. Yeah, that's a pivot right there. And we just want to make as many of those pivots right now as we can, because although October will not do it for us, man, it will push us to those points where we say something has to change, right? That's what it's designed for. We just also get to say, we also have a say in how it's going to change.
Okay, next question. I've been waking up every night at 4 a.m. It is hard to get back to sleep. I haven't changed anything about what I am doing before bedtime. Is there something I can do to help myself get a solid night's sleep?
I'm going to shift this a little bit, because when we wake up, especially at a specific time of night, that specific time of night typically has, sometimes it's related to an organ in the body, and you can Google different times, of the night, and it'll tell you whether it's a liver point or a gallbladder point or that kind of thing. You can look into that. But what I want to say is, when you wake up at whatever that time is, instead of immediately trying to get yourself back to sleep, just give yourself a moment to absorb that time of night, absorb the energy that is available there. You're very likely being woken up to support yourself in some way, to heal something, to transmute something. And so instead of just trying to force yourself back to sleep, absorb the energy of that time. Yep. And you might even, without even looking into what those different times of night are, you might very well be able to just pull that energy in, and you might be able to notice where it goes in your body, what it makes you think about, how it makes you feel. That's probably giving you an awful lot of information about why you're waking up at that particular time.
All right, this question. I have been experiencing a lot of feelings of conflict and betrayal within personal relationships and work relationships. I've been feeling more fragile and irritable lately as well. I feel a big push has begun, as Suzy has mentioned. It feels like things are clearing. I'm trying best to navigate through all of this and also have a reoccurring soreness in my left shoulder neck. Any insights?
Yours is left, mine's right, so we're balancing each other out a little bit here. Yeah, so what's beginning to happen, what's beginning to come into collective conscious awareness, and is definitely coming in to awareness for each of us individually as well, is that we've been duped. That's the only way I can say it. It's like we've been corralled, we've been coerced, we've been conditioned. It's like, and when the collective starts waking up to that, even when us, I mean, you and I, we've all known this for quite some time. We've known these things. It's one thing to know it, to consciously, have it in our mental capacity to know these things. It's quite another thing to start feeling it leaking out of our bodies, start feeling where that tension that really has always been there, right? That tension in the vagus nerve, that tension in what we have actually shouldered, the tension in how we get to give and receive down through that is an energetic imprint that has been laid upon in many ways, taken upon, conditioned into our biology, psychology, neurology. And so you're right now, all of that energy is coming up and out. And it's not just coming up and out for you and I, it's coming out for collective humanity. And it pisses people off. I mean, it's like, why wouldn't it? You know, it's irritating. It pisses people off that this has been the case. And, you know, a lot of times people will say things like, well, I'm just now finding out about this, or why am I just feeling this when I've known this for quite some time? And so very likely what happens right after that is we start making ourselves wrong, because one of the biggest conditions that has happened on this planet is that we have been taught to make ourselves wrong for what goes on in the world. That's the biggest illusion, delusion, confusion, right? And so we very naturally and organically goes, well, what's wrong with me? I'm broken. Something's happening to me, right? No, you were born into a world that was basically slave-based, right? And you were a little person. You were just born into this reality. You didn't know that that's what it was. And the very fact that most of us are even aware that we're irritated, or that we're aware that our bodies are hurting a little bit more, we're aware. That's that part of us that remained aware. That's that part of us that didn't fall asleep, right? But there's no reason for us to beat ourselves up about that. Yeah. What I will say is we want to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel, right? That we are irritated, we are frustrated, it is unnerving or uncomfortable, and that we can allow ourselves to have those kinds of feelings, emotions, energies running through us. We can even go and act it out in whatever way is not harmful, right, to ourselves or to others. Get in your car and scream, you know, get the bat from underneath the bed and beat the crap out of your pillows, do something to let that energy move. And although it sounds like it sounds funny, but I just want to point out, this is how conditioned we are. It's that we're not allowed to get in our car and scream, but we are allowed to get frustrated at our employee or our employer or our friends. We are allowed to take it out on them. But it seems kind of silly or funny or weird to grab a bat and beat the shit out of our bed, or scream in the car, or listen to some music that just, it's like, see, so this is that's conditioning. That's conditioning. And this is why we talked about very early on, Journey Back to Love, Avatar Energetics, all these different places, the Autism Integration Series, all these places where we get to learn that we have all been conditioned to certain feelings. If you're happy and light and bright and you're good. So the piece that we really want to hold on to is that we have been conditioned from the very beginning. We've been conditioned from the very beginning to certain feelings, certain emotions, certain things. We're good if we feel light, breezy, and happy. We're bad if we feel angry, frustrated, and whatever. But again, we really want to consider the fact that maybe we're not, maybe the fact that we're angry, frustrated, or whatever is just an indication that we're picking up a collective wave of energy, or maybe we're picking up what's underneath the surface, but's not spoken. I mean, how many of us intuitive types, empathic types have said to somebody, is something wrong? Are you okay? Is something off? Because we can feel what's underneath, and that person says, no, I'm fine, I'm okay, everything's good, right? Well, for a little person, that creates confusion. that creates, well, wait a minute, I felt this, but you said that, right? From that moment forward, we begin to say, well, no, we get confused about the way things feel, and we make ourselves wrong for feeling one way instead of another way. So, yeah, compassion, compassion, compassion. It's amazing how much compassion and love does, and it's amazing how much it does when it's directed back at ourselves. So let's, I hope that's helpful. And not too discombobulated.
That is it on questions.
Okay, all right. So let me, we're definitely going to do this special session, Sharon. I can tell you that right now. Let's see here. Yeah, what's so interesting to me to watch is this. It's like this dismantling or this dissolving of certain fields. So if I were to see us as concentric circles of information and energy, and most of those concentric circles were based on conditioned reality. It's what we do because our parents did it. It's what we do because our teachers did it. It's what we do not because it's unique unto us necessarily, but because it's just what we learned to do. And it served us very well because we needed to belong to a community. We needed to belong to a household. It was a survival technique, let's say. But what's so interesting right now is something's just dismantling. All of that, those old tapes are just crashing in. And as they do so, it can leave one a little confused, a little disoriented, a little, okay, well, what am I now, or who am I now, if I'm not all of these ways of negotiating and navigating my reality, right? And instead of trying to figure out, how to negotiate or navigate your reality now, just sit in the love that you are. Just because what's left when all of that conditioning pulls away is the field of love that you've always been. So let it go, let it drop. It's not for you. It never was for you. It's just showing you just how conditioned we actually have been, our whole lives, right? And waking up to that is kind of like waking up to being in the Matrix in some ways. It's like waking up to it, but it doesn't have to be a negative. It doesn't have to be, oh, it's terrible that I'm waking up to this reality. No, you're waking it up to it because that's all you're waking up to it as it's leaving, as it's moving out, as it's changing into, or as it's reverting back to the love that you are. You're catching the waves of anxiety and stress and frustration and irritation and confusion and fear and all that other stuff as it's moving out of your field. If it was still stagnant in your field, you wouldn't notice it. It's still there. It's nestled in right where it was before. You've been working around it. It's when it starts to be on the move that we start noticing it. Yep. And so go back into that heart space, go back into the field or the frequency of love that you are, and let's work with it to move its way out. Yeah. Yeah. All right, folks, thanks for your questions. And you always help me know what I know. So I'm really appreciative. I never know what I know until somebody asks a question. So, or not what I know, but what something else knows. So anyway, all right. Lots of love, everybody. And yeah, be on the lookout for that email because I'm going to work on that today. I feel like that's really necessary now. So, all right. Lots of love. Bye.